Season 4, Episode 9, To Work or Not to Work in the Face of Danger. And a warning to our listeners, this episode speaks on near-miss harm of a child. This episode speaks on the first pillar of work design, workplace protections and the socio-political influences of worker empowerment. Thank you to subscriber David Dinau, who shared their story about construction work and safety concerns. Sara introduces the third pillar of work design, and the team pay tribute to the Why Work podcast principal sponsor, Viva Health at Work. And a big thank you to those funky design movers and shakers that influence our work. Katra Bailey, graphic design, Michael Grimer, industrial design, David Dinau, a user experience and service designer, Tide Rabbit, video production, and David Hall, the remarkable dance party purveyor of fun and Melbourne's guru disco duck duck. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Why Work podcast series. You are listening to Trajce Vitkovsky, Sara Pizzell and Alan Girl.
Trajce, Alan, people are writing in and trying to either reflecting on something we've said and debating it and digging deeper, or it's prompting them to remember something that's happened in their experiences. And we seek that out too. When we get new subscribers or people following our LinkedIn group, which you certainly can do, follow us on LinkedIn, the Why Work podcast group. And every time you hear something, please give us some feedback on the podcast, give us that 5-star rating, and go ahead and recommend the podcast to someone you know who might also benefit. It just helps us learn from everybody's stories and keeps it real, right? But
yes,
we've had a lot of
indeed
subscribers write in.
And then can I just say thank you very much to our Sri Lankan listeners.
Yeah.
We have been in the Sri Lankan business and management charts now for a number of weeks.
Go Sri Lanka.
We're humbled.
Just run through some of the countries. Where we go?
Canada.
States.
You expect the US, New Zealand, Canada.
We've got a little bit of UK.
A little bit of UK.
We've got some of Asia.
For some reason we were charting in the Netherlands.
South Africa. The
South
Netherlands.
Africa.
There's a big South African interest.
Yeah, look, we're charting. But
And the Netherlands. How did we get into the Netherlands?
the Dutch.
We've got a lot of UK, a lot of different United Kingdom followers.
Maybe they get our kooky humour.
But have we cracked Russia yet? Do we have anyone from Russia?
Yet, Tavares.
We have.
Yeah.
No. Have you checked? Have you checked?
I'm too scared to check.
Sarah's checking as we speak.
Oh, no. We've definitely had Kazakhstani followers.
Now, look, but Sri Lanka they seem to be getting our. So perhaps there have been some work redesign.
New Zealand, we shouldn't forget the New Zealanders. We always forget the New
Zealanders.
Zealanders.
You're a lot of New Zealand followers.
It's just because they're no good at football. That's why we forget them.
Just for the record, that was Alan, the owl, who said that, not me. But yeah, so I'm really humbled by that. And I guess it's, we often think of our territory, Australia, but this is a global, it's a global reach.
Manila, Philippines.
This is fantastic.
Malaysia.
Your extended family at the Philippines.
Not my family. No.
Okay.
I've got friends that are from Laos.
Oh,
right?
yes.
But we've got followers in Malaysia and Indonesia and Vietnam. I'm just looking on some of the maps. Singapore, Jakarta. I'm just looking through some of this. There's a lot all around the world.
It's really humbling. And obviously people like to listen. And I know podcasts, people just listen to them randomly. But the messages...
Hopefully they're laughing with us and not laughing at us.
Oh, look, I'll take anything.
We appreciate you, is what we're saying.
On that note, Sara, somebody did write in.
Yes, so we have David Dinau, who just for the record, you know how I often talk about, hey, businesses should have design counsel and there needs to be more design input in how you run your business. Even in our little consultancy firm through Viva Health at Work, we have been working with David now to try.
Duck.
David, no, not Duck. I love David Duck, but that's okay. All right. Because you've said this, now we have to recognize David Hall, who is the disco duck. He is the silent disco master, right? Guru, I think you call him, in Melbourne. So when you are walking in the markets or in the plaza, by day job, occupational physiotherapist, occupational advisor in work and health, and does some contract work with Viva, does his own work too. By night or by weekend, disco duck, Guru Duru. He puts on this gold green disco outfit and a silent disco where you rent the headphones, music blares, and you are boogieing. He's got it all going on throughout the markets, throughout the plazas, at the mall, right? He'd come today if we wanted him.
So this is why I love human factors people. They're just groovy.
But this is a
He's
different
been with
David.
us for a long time too, hasn't he? He was right from season 1.
He's been a good supporter.
Yeah,
and this, I'm
Dave.
talking about David Deneau. I'm
Okay.
talking about design support. So in our business, consultancy business, like I advise big business, is we're establishing more and more design influence to help cross over that knowledge in our team and to help our business become more robust. So David is a user experience designer. He has a background in construction. Now we're also starting to work more with Michael Grima, who I've bounced off ideas many times, but he's now formally becoming involved in advising Viva on projects and our design strategies. He's an industrial designer with good design strategy. And he's also getting involved in some of our projects to help us design clients. So that third pillar of design is well met. And Katra, who you've met, Katra, her maiden name was Katra Tatra. How cool is that? But she's now married. I'm not sure which last name she uses. But Katra does our graphic design and our camera work.
Does a fantastic job.
Wonderful.
And so we're just working on establishing really strong design relationships, curating the relationships, cultivating design thinking, or vice versa, right? So
Give a bit more of a plug for her. Is she available for other people who want to use her?
for graphic design and for photography, absolutely. Katja has her own business, 45 Degrees. So she's Latvian, is that right?
Latvian, I believe, yes.
Yeah, so she did this with Latitude and, you know.
So all those little graphics that our listeners see when they log onto our podcast, it's all her.
That's right. And Ty did our videos. So thank you also to Ty Rabbit. Yes, we've got some great design influence. So our little business is trying to formalize design strategy and thinking and how we apply ourselves and reflect on our business. Now, David has a background, David Deneau, not Duck Duck. David Deneau has a background in construction, and he's written to us about his past work as a carpenter in labor hire companies and sent to help with commercial renovations, right? And he's found supervisors who are underprepared, lacking in a lot of important knowledge. So this is this challenge to be on top of it all when you're small or medium business, right? And he noticed some red flags. There's like asbestos residue in places where he's been sent to work, steel beams the wrong size, plans in the site at the site did not match for what was instructed for their work, scaffolding issues that scaffolding that might sway in the breeze. And sometimes there's aspects where, you know, things need to be removed and others weren't well anchored. There's loose bricks, right? So you've got the scene, right?
Yeah.
And trying to advocate for himself and other workers by sharing this information with a labor hire company. And this is now this social system, chain of responsibility. How tight's the coupling? Who's responsible? Labor hire company, of course, wouldn't want to lose the job and not complain too much. But we've got real people implementing that work, right? Doing the work and needing to advance that. And sometimes they just might not be championing safety issues or just underskilled and understaffed management. And yet decisions are made rapidly, right? And sometimes you might cite your creative differences or your beliefs of support that are needed, your understanding of, you know, human interests, and the company's just not happy about that. Well, he left a company like this, and a few days later got a call on a Sunday morning early from a manager saying, can I have your white card details? And he thought, okay, this isn't a good sign. But the scaffolding that he'd alerted people to, scaffolding had fallen over in the night, struck the building next door, part of it through the window of a child's bedroom at 1 a.m., right? Can you imagine the alarm, the alerts, the police, the fire, the work cover, investigators instigating the next morning? Your thoughts?
My thoughts are never be ashamed or uncomfortable about walking away from a dangerous site. I think if I have seen hundreds and hundreds of times where workers and executives and business owners have found themselves in a tragic event and the trauma, the enormous trauma that follows when there's a prosecution or a coronial inquest, and it's just not worth it. It really is not worth it. If something's unsafe and you have no control over it, then leave.
And what happens if I put it to you that might be a privileged position for some? So most respectfully, I'll just put it out there where some people feel so vulnerable and in need of supporting their family or culturally not having access to work, whatever it is.
Yeah, I get that. But most of our listeners will be professionals. They'll be work health and safety professionals largely.
Yeah.
And
wait. And designers and people in culture and
yes,
operations
true.
and frontliners. Yeah.
So I won't say they're in privileged positions. I'm sure many do it tough, but they are in the position that they could leave one employer and go to another.
So even the gig economy worker who's desperate for work in that space, you're saying they'll still find work. It is, at least in Australia, they'll likely still find some work.
You've got to make a risk assessment, I guess, and the risk assessment is this. If something goes wrong, something goes terribly wrong, it will change your life. So, if you choose to stay in a dangerous work environment, that's the risk you're taking.
And, so that sounds very much personal responsibility. And I'm not debating that it's wrong, Alan, bear with me. I'm just saying, a system that permits it versus personal responsibility, like you just raised the issue earlier of the woman who was spanked. Right, by dear Lieutenant Colonel. Choice to stay, or are you feeling so vulnerable that you need to hang in there? Okay, so when there's power disparities or when there's a great deal of vulnerability, something that seems so clear later in textbook isn't clear at that time when you're making that decision. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
That's right.
But if you make the decision to walk away, and that's what we're looking at here, I don't think you should ever be ashamed of that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, and especially if you think about that person, particularly the labour hire, they've got to put food on the table. They could, if they don't have enough money to pay for the rent, they could be out, evicted, or perhaps lose a house. Often there's that struggle, that internal struggle. Or some may not even know, for example, to call the 1-800 number and call the inspectorate, call the regulator to say, look, I can see dust here. I reasonably suspect or believe this is, for example, some type of, nanoparticle, some type of microfiber.
The Ripley breach case.
The best you can do is alert.
Well, you should speak up first.
If not, if you're scared.
Which was done many times and not being listened to.
Then I would defer to Alan's point and go, you know what? And it's not even about personal responsibility. It's about self-preservation and saying, I've done my bit. I can't deal with this. I mean, if they're a union person, they may wish to contact their representatives. If the organisation are big enough, there may be health and safety representatives they can contact. But if it's usually a small business situation, all you can do is alert if you can and then walk away. Because if something does go awry, mentioned before, and I'll mention it again, there are non-delegible duties, there are concurrent obligations, and there will be a full examination, and there could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defendants who may all be prosecuted, including the labour hire company. So if something does go awry, let the authorities delve. But in terms of your own self-care and maintenance, I would do exactly what Alan would do.
There's something else too, which is this is quite unique to Queensland, and we're not seeing it anywhere else in Australia. But in Queensland, the lowest workers are being charged. So
explain that.
So if you're a worker with no qualifications, no supervisory responsibilities, and the regulator forms the view that you've breached your responsibilities under the Work Health and Safety Act, in Queensland, there's a good chance that you'll be charged. Now, that historically that wasn't true. Surprising that it's happening under the current government, but it is.
Yeah, I've done it a couple of times.
It's not but it's happening regularly now.
Oh, is it? Right.
And it's not happening in the other states, not with the same level of regularity.
Yeah.
So if you're a low-level worker, and by that I mean you don't have supervisory responsibilities, and something is going wrong, you shouldn't participate in it. If you think there's asbestos sheeting and it's being ground with grinders, you shouldn't participate in it. You should say no.
And the issue of, sorry, that just flashed back Nancy Reagan, just say no. That was the drug campaign in America. Just say no. That was the phrase. Just say no.
It's thing, isn't it? Saying no. It's really important to say no.
You might be out temporarily out of work, but my understanding is there's a lot of work going around. So
the issues about short staffing and skilled shortages in management decision making are interesting to me because I hear a lot like, oh, if you're making a decision about work strategy, then you're a work designer. I've heard that generally, and I'm like, actually, we better break that down then, because there's design outcomes and cogent design strategy. And if you're making a decision that impacts the design of work, where a lot of managers are, there's tiers, and I would say that there's a tier of accidental designers because they're certainly not using a cogent design process and understanding all the trade-offs and the implications of their decision in a very holistic way. Or there's intentional design. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is the intentional design. Because in the scenario that David Deneau just explained to us, it sounded like a whole bunch of accidental design strategy, right? Versus intentional design, very robust design strategy. And in that case, there's a difference when you're talking about good work design versus designing good work. So good work design is the strategy that's employed that's very defensible, very defensive design strategy, versus designing good work, because good work is a very relative term. If somebody works in a chicken factory, you might want to make sure that they're well preserved and their life is protected, and there's certainly respect in there, but the design of the system involves them. The process is cogent, but it might not be considered good work for you and me to go work in that setting. Yeah, right? Good work is a very relative term, and sometimes the terms are like, oh, well, if you design good work, then all the rest of the features will flow, and that's not true. You might not have a safe system just because you have a fun workplace either. So there's a distinction in my mind about designing good work and good work design. Good work design to me is the strategy. And what I'm hearing now is there's a lot of accidental design strategy, particularly when businesses are not having a separate, well-considered facet of design counsel. All over the place. There's, people say sometimes, oh, if you design for people's health and fitness, then all the safety measures will be met. I'm like, well, there's businesses going broke all the time, like F45. I'm sorry to hear this, but fit people are not making good decisions.
Right. Some work is just not good. You just can't design some good work.
I don't know
for
how
example,
it's good.
Gutting fish or aggregating tomatoes. That's paid work, and you might do a lot of shifts and get a lot of, but let's face it, Sarah's right there. You can never design.
Oh my gosh, can I soundbite that? Can I meme that? Say that
Sarah's
again.
Right there.
Sarah's right there.
No,
Okay,
no.
You just have that playing on Sarah's right.
I withdraw that statement.
You do not. You felt it with a passion.
I
You knew
withdraw
it.
that statement, and I say this: Sarah's always right.
Little Miss can't be wrong.
And we love it. Before we close off this topic, there is another critical moment in time in the growth of a business. Now, businesses often start as a highly skilled person, maybe a tradesperson, and they build up the family business, and it gets bigger and bigger, and then maybe they get to 20 people, and then you can't keep organically growing. You've got to. There comes a point where you have to say, we just can't keep running this as a mum and dad business.
You need more formal structure.
We've got to have more formal structures. We need to look at the design of the business because organically growing is just not going to work anymore.
I'm excited because we've appointed a few new consultants, some with PhDs, human factors ergonomics consultants. Our little business is growing. And I'm very, conscious about the need to make sure that we're doing things well. And
because you can't be everywhere all the time.
Oh, well, I try, but no.
You go from Sunshine Coast to Toowoomba and boom, in a day.
No, just dissolve into fairy dust soon. So that's why we've had some great expertise with people like David Deneau, Michael Grima, Tatra, all involved in helping us with design strategy. And we also have to get some, serious framework around it with those workplace protections and people and culture. And we've got to have that right support, right? Great fun.
You've been listening to Trajce, Sara and Alan. And if you've really enjoyed this show, share this with a friend. Submit your 5-star rating on your favourite podcast streaming service. Keep listening and send in your stories. You can email us at hello@ywork.com.au. And of course, sign in to our newsletter. You can head straight to our website at www.ywork.com.au. support.whywork.com.au. We can't wait to learn about the trouble you've seen in the workplace. And remember, none of the things we've talked about today should be construed as legal advice or any other type of advice. We're just here to talk about all things related to work, and we hope you enjoyed as much as we do. We love it. See you next time.